Welcome to Out of the Box with KT and JayPee. Talk from a higher dimensional perspective. Looking at current affairs and the energies of the times. With a high vibrational proactive approach. Come and explore the universe within us all. Sundays, 1 till 3 on Wolf Spirit Radio. With KT Gallanti and Jay Perron. You're listening to Wolf Spirit Radio. And welcome to Out of the Box with KT and JayPee, and I am JayPee, and
I am Katie.
There you are. Let me just turn you up a little bit. Yep, there we go. Get those voices balanced. So, hello and welcome everybody to another edition. It's a monthly show. We discuss the energies of the time, the movements of flow, of force, and the thinness of the veil, and all of those interesting little things. So, we got quite a few topics that we basically it's the stuff that has been coming up in our own lives, clients that we get and energies that we're sensing ourselves. So hopefully everybody will be able to relate to the same kind of thing, because we're on the same planet as you are, and we're listening and feeling into the same kind of things. So where should we start, Katie?
I don't know. I was going to, sometimes we start from the astrology, but I'm actually not even that up to date about what's happening on the astrology. I think that we're just still in the same, it's the same old, same old. We're still in this big Pluto-Uranus square, right? It's still fairly active for a lot of people. And so what I would like to do is maybe instead of talking about that again, that we've already talked about several times, it's nothing really new, okay? Maybe what we can talk about is just the energy in general at the moment on the planet. It's very intense. I don't know if it's intense for other people, but all of the people that are showing up in my life are having intense times, right? There's people that are having economic intensity, like there's the money, do you know what I mean? A lot of people are having trouble with their health right now, and a lot of the women seem to be having issues with their hormonal balance and fatigue issues, and do you know what I mean, all of that kind of stuff. I have several people in my life that I know that have those kind of issues. I kind of have them all and off myself, and they are all kind of talking to me right now about the fact that they're not feeling very well. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I have a theory that I think the men feel this less because you guys are blessed with a slightly more simple hormonal system, so you don't go out of balance quite as quickly, okay? But with us, women, we seem to have a much more finer balance with that kind of stuff. So if the hormones go out, they all go out at the same time. So if you have a lot of stress energy, it makes all of the other glands go out of balance pretty quickly, right? And so it seems that the women have almost like less room to maneuver with that kind of stuff. And I have a theory that, how all of the chakras have a endocrine gland that is attached to it, right? And I personally think that these energies that are coming in from the sun and from the stresses that are coming in from the planetary level actually trigger the chakras, and they activate them, and with that they kind of put pressure on the endocrine system, okay? And I think the New World Order knows this, because they seem to have gone out of their way to pollute a whole food chain with endocrine disruptors. Do you know what I mean?
Literally, yes.
Literally. There's the xenoestrogens, there's the thyroid. The xenoestrogens disrupt the sex hormones, even for the men. There's a lot of boys now that have secondary female sex characteristics at like 16, 17 years old, right? And the girls are going into puberty at like 8, 9 years old. So that is because of all of the xenoestrogens that are in the food chain, which are like the growth hormone that is in the meat, okay? But it's also all of the plastics, all of the petroleum derivatives, the preservatives in makeup and face creams and soap and the stuff that it's in shampoo. It's like everywhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, so unless you actually make your own stuff, you're flooded with xenoestrogens, and they've actually done studies on fish that are next to factories that offload a lot of xenoestrogens in the water, okay? And the fish in the waters that have this kind of xenoestrogen pollution, there's they do the statistics on them, and there's more female fish than there's male fish, but also a whole bunch of fish are hermaphrodites that have both, do you know what I mean? They're male and female, okay?
Yes.
And so that is what happens to the fish, and what happens to us is that the men end up having issues with testosterone, like lower testosterone than they should do, and they have ED, you know what I mean, erectile dysfunction, all of that kind of stuff. And on a more like superficial level, less dramatic, it also makes them less assertive. It makes them less, less warrior-like, right? Which I'm sure benefits somebody. And with the women, it makes them more crazy. It makes us tired and crazy. Because
that's great. That's the kind of girlfriend I like.
That's right. Tired and crazy. It's good. And also the men are all doormats because they're all flooded with xenoestrogen. So,
yeah, I'll put up the curtains, shall I?
Okay. So there you go. So that is the new male female in the new world order.
Well, they've there's often been this promotion of this transhumanist, which is like, it's kind of, well, basically the transhuman is emotionless. That's what they're trying to create, is an emotionless being. Yeah. Whereas us humans and Earth beings, we have feelings and compassion. Or
at least we should, yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's what they're trying to breed out of us by giving us all this crap.
Well, and I think, first of all, they're trying to, I still don't understand why. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't understand, but it's kind of interesting, let's put it this way, how they're going about it, because obviously there's a soft kill going on. There's no doubt about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can say that some people say, it's just commercially driven. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just the result of a profit-driven society. It's not that they want to kill everybody off. It's just that they don't care because they're driven by profit, right? Like, that's one theory. But, I don't know. I think this
Long stories. I mean,
yes.
The Mahabharata story of these beings. I'm still trying to figure it out. There's so many different timelines, and perhaps they're all true. But one of the timelines is that there's beings 300,000 years ago, 400,000 years ago, and this is according to the Sitchin stuff. Right. But then, according to Michael Tsarian, the whole Anunnaki thing happened 50,000 years ago, or maybe they both happened and that there were different kinds of Anunnaki. I'm still trying to figure all this out and find out exactly what's the truth. I would like to personally remember myself, but you have memories, don't you?
I do have memories, and according to Katie, and to Michael Tellinger, it's 250,000 years ago. Okay?
Right.
And I think that, I don't know about Zecharia Sitchin. I actually don't know enough about Zecharia Sitchin's work to comment on it with any, do you know what I mean? Like, I would have to have actually read it, which I haven't. I have just heard about his work rather than actually read it directly, right? But my sense is that he placed it in a time period that either was convenient to somebody, or it was just the only time period in which he could fit it, because that was the framework within which he was operating. Because there's a lot of people that really don't think in the the mainstream archaeology really does see everything as the birth of civilization is literally Egypt and the Mesopotamian type society, do you know what I mean? And some of the Chinese people, and they don't put them very far back in time, right? And in fact, I'm kind of talking outside of my field here because I don't know enough about some of this stuff, but from what I've read, it seems to me that whenever somebody starts to touch hey, hang on a minute, there was civilization here much, much before that, the archaeological society kind of shuts down on them and they lose their tenure kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think that is driven by the Illuminati, elite, whatever, that actually don't want people to realize that humankind has actually been on this planet for a very, 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 very long time, right? And from my past life memories, which, they could be completely BS, right, my memories, but assuming that they're true, which I think they are, humankind was on this planet in a very well-developed fashion a very long time ago, because humankind was actually seeded, right? Like the humans on this planet, they didn't develop out of the apes. They did not develop as an evolutionary. That story is fake. The whole Darwin thing is fake. It's not true. So human beings were actually seeded here by evolved positive ETs, almost like as a kind of what Barbara Marciniak says in her books. And then what happened was that a negative ET force came in, right, and started messing around with stuff, and it started messing around with stuff genetically to kind of disable, because the original human was a 12-stranded, fully activated being that held a lot of light, right? And that was capable of holding a lot of light, that was capable of holding a lot of knowledge, that was capable of holding a lot of skills, and that was a natural, multi-dimensional being capable of accessing all the way to the 12th dimensional level of awareness, right? Now these beings, they didn't want that. And they didn't want that because they are an invader force, and when people invade people, they don't want them to be in their power. They want them to be disempowered, because then they're more easy to control. And so they basically dismantled the 12th dimensional structure. And by the way, they can dismantle that as much as they like. It's still there. The ability to connect multidimensionally is still there. It's just not spontaneous. Okay? So you have to actually work it instead of it happening spontaneously. And some people, it even happens spontaneously, but usually it's because their DNA is different to begin with, because they're not from here. But in the normal Joe Bloggs human, right, you have to work it, because it's not there spontaneously. Okay? And so so these beings, they came through and they tampered, but not only they tampered, but they also dismantled the original civilization and they replaced it with their own hierarchies and so on. And my sense is that there was a first invasion and then there was a second one that was a little bit later. But, and they kind of really got their claws in all the way towards the end of Atlantis. And then and the end of Atlantis was actually a result of that phenomenon. Atlantis would have been fine if these dark forces had not actually come in. And once they actually settled in, then they took over completely in Egypt, and the whole of this cycle that by this cycle I mean fall of Atlantis until now. That is I think it's a 13,000 year cycle, half of the perception of the equinoxes. All of this cycle has pretty much been dominated by these forces, right? And here we are, we are at another peak of the cycle, and we have the energy coming in from the solar system, from the sun, the galaxy, etc. The doorways are opening for the possibility. It's almost like, you know, when you're at a station and you get to the point where there's the node where you switch the lever and then you decide where the tracks is going to go.
Oh yeah, the points, yeah.
Yeah, that is where we're at. We're at the node point. Okay? And the door opens, it's like the track comes loose, and you can decide where the track is going to go. And there's many, many different tracks, and that's where we are. Okay? At the moment, the feeling that I have, I mean, it's kind of interesting because things keep changing, you know. So you have some times in which you look at it and it's like, oh, everything is great, hunky-dory, here we go. Do you know what I mean? We're going forward, everything's cool, human beings are all on board. And then some disruption comes in, and then everything goes different and changes again. Okay? So at the moment, when I look at it, it just all feels kind of chaotic, right? And even in our lives, I think stuff is kind of chaotic right now. I don't know if other people are experiencing this, but I can see this in my life, and it's from an evolutionary perspective. If we take the planet out of it for a second, and we just look at the evolutionary perspective, this is a time, by evolutionary I mean each person, their soul, and how they're evolving and where they're trying to go. Okay? Because we're here as a collective to move this planet forward and move humanity forward into another chapter, but we're also here on our own personal journey, and on our own personal journey we have our own agenda that is different from the collective. You know, the two things happening at the same time, right? There are a lot of souls here that are just here because of the acceleration and the for the opportunity to experience this really fast evolution, and that are not even here to do work on the planet. And these kinds of people, every now and, you know, there's a lot of people that are just dying and leaving the planet because once they've done with that piece, they can leave. Do you know what I mean? And then there's the ones kind of like us that are here to actually help the planetary story to go forward at the same time. But on the personal level, this whole summer, and it seems to be continuing, but I don't think it's going to continue for much longer, is almost like a big test time. And it's particularly been testing, I think, for the people that are at the forefront of things. I'm not sure if, you know, what's going to happen later, but the people that are at the forefront of things, that are kind of more aware at the moment, seems to be going through a lot of testing. And the testing is of different kinds. There's some testing of integrity going on, okay? Because if you are going to lead, right, groups or whatever, forward into a new energy, into rebuilding, because we're going to need to rebuild this planet at some point, we have to get rid of the landlords, but then we have to rebuild as well. So there's different kinds of leaderships required for those two things. But if you're going to do that, you have to be trustworthy, right? You have to be able to hold really good energy, pure intent. You have to have your ego out of the way. You have to not be motivated by power. You have to be motivated by mission. You have to be of service, all of those kinds of things, right? And not service as, a negative, but literally as the mission is more important than my ego. That's what service means, okay? And so I think that there's a lot of that kind of testing going on. And then there is also testing in terms of lessons, whatever lessons people are trying to have come into this body to master. This seems to be a time in which many of them are actually doing that. They are confronting the core of the onion of whatever it is that they are dealing with as a core life issue. Okay? And this has been going through all the way through the summer, and it's continuing. And my guides at the time had always told me that we would be in this until September, but we are in September.
And it's still bloody going on.
Going on. So my guides lied.
Well, maybe they were just saying, this is going to go on until September, and then it's going to get worse.
Maybe they meant September of 2014 or 2000.
Yeah, so it's September 2027. No. We might. Yeah, no. Honestly, there are limits. There are limits.
They said, hang in there until September. I'm like, okay, I'm hanging. So we're now at September 22. We have 8 more days. Then miraculously everything has to resolve.
Well, here we are. I mean, we've just moved into Libra. I mean, one of the things that we started this show was about is that the timing of the show is the start of the new astrological month. It was the first Sunday of the astrological month, but then it got too complicated for everybody. So we're now doing the 4th Sunday of the month, which is always been there. But the awareness of the energies that we're moving in. I mean, I watch these astrological videos, and I tell you, the information that they give is often a little too much. It's like, this is happening, and that's happening, and then this week, and the next week, and it's like, what's the general feel? What am I likely to be experiencing, kind of thing, and so we're now moving out from Leo, which is very expanded, and is it Leo? No, we're Virgo. We're in Virgo. We're out of Leo, very expanded, into contracted old picky little Virgo. Where is she? No, she's not there. Oops. It's my girlfriend's birthday the other day. So. Picky little Virgos. Bless their hearts. Bless their minds and hearts, and particularly.
Well, they're very discriminating.
Discriminating, there's a good word. There's a good way of putting it.
That's one of the nicest things you can say about a Virgo.
Yeah, if it works for you. Anyway, meanwhile, so we're out of Virgo, and now we're moving in. So that completes the first 6-month cycle, which is known as the personal cycle. And now we're moving into the group cycle.
Yeah, and we started with Aries. We were great. We actually started with the 0 point of the zodiac.
Absolutely. Hey, aren't we good?
Yeah.
How we planned this?
We didn't plan it at all. So without planning it at all, we started on the 0 point of Aries, the beginning of the zodiac. Yay! So, and now we're in Libra, so carry on, I interrupted you.
That's right. So, Aries is the beginning of the zodiac's divided into two. It's like the personal for the first 6 months, and then it's the collective for the second 6 months. So we start off with Aries, which is very I, me. I want to do this. Let's do this. But now we're coming into Libra, which is.
It's relationship.
Yes, it's relationship. It's let's do this.
Yeah.
What shall we do? How do we work this out? And this is the energy that we're moving into today, isn't it?
Yeah. It's also Libra is also balance, right? And it's also justice. Okay? And it's also law. You know, like the scales, the two things of the scales, the balance, the justice, and the law, right? Okay, this versus that. And I have Mars in Libra, and in theory, you would think Mars in Libra, it's really peaceful, right?
Chilled out, huh?
But Mars in Libra fights for justice, right? So you actually have a lot of activists with Mars in Libra, because they will fight for justice. They will fight for peace. They will fight for whatever it is that they will fight for the cause, right? And I had that even when I was in school, in high school, secondary school. Do you know what I mean? It was like, this is not fair, and I was class rep because of that. Because whenever there was something that was not fair, I would I would go to war on it, and so that was that ended up being the role. So the thing about Libra, it's about relationship, and it's about peace, and it's about balance, but it also has a strange kind of conflict energy in it, that is the fight for the peace and the fight for the justice and so on. So I'm just saying that because there's a lot of talk about war at the moment, and it's interesting that we're going into Libra. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I mean, it may be, and this is also, I think we were talking about discernment earlier, and we went through a period of Virgo,
yep,
wherein the people actually had an influence on the politics.
Yeah.
And this whole idea of, let's go and invade Syria, suddenly becomes, hang on a second, nobody wants to do this. And America was left standing alone, obviously with Britain tucked around the back and Israel up everybody's backside. Then we have all these opportunities to actually make a movement, and and here comes Putin. Isn't Putin a Libra?
I have no idea.
I don't know, I get a kind of Libra feel about it. Anyway, I've got Libra rising, so I've got this quite strong Libra energy, and this sense of things need to be right. Things need to be clean and tidy and in order. Which is, of course, in order is the seventh ray, and not the New World Order, but, in proper order, in right order.
Yep.
And this is an influence, I believe, that is very prevalent just in these last few. So yes, Virgo, discerning, people are actually able to see, and though I think a large number of people started to see. Oh, hang on a second, Obama's trying to invade Syria, and then there's this shooting that is really random and all over the news. There's got to be something going on here. What's going on? People are starting to understand.
Absolutely. And, in some ways it's always like this, isn't it? That we actually always have had the power, and always will, to stop things. There's a lot of us, right? And there's not a lot of them. And if we simply just don't do what they want to do, it doesn't happen. If people stop buying the corporate products, the corporations don't make any money. If people stop buying the medicines from, like Big Pharma goes under. If soldiers stop, enlisting that's over also. We have power in our ability to not go along with stuff, okay? They may have the power to initiate and make things happen because they have a lot of capital and they have a lot of worldly clout. But they need us to do all of these things that they want to do. And unless we participate, those things most of the time cannot happen, okay?
Yeah, so let's pick a few of those out there. So, moving into a place where we can actually make a difference and know we can make a difference. Mm-hmm. This is something that we're starting really, really baby steps. And the baby step is the first baby step. What does a baby do? What is the first interaction that a baby gives back to its parents? It says no. Yeah? Oh. And so humanity needs to make that baby step, that first baby step, right? No. Why, I've studied your taxation system and your banking system, and it's not what you keep telling us, or what you implied. The banks don't, lend out the money that we put in. No, that's not true. You create money out of nowhere and charge everybody dozens for it, and then sell it off several times over. So it's a completely fraudulent thing. And then when you realize that the taxation system is actually to pay off the banking interest, then you want to not pay the tax because that's not what builds the roads. And then there's all this other stuff that's going on that we think is one way, but is really another way. It's all an illusion. And we're also starting to discover the truth about those beings that we were talking about earlier, who arrived on our planet, who called themselves gods, and we've been saying, oh yes, of course you're a god, until now, and we realise, hang on a second, you're just a big bloke with a bad mood.
Absolutely. Very bad mood, and scaly skin.
And a big cone head.
And a kind of green looking. And not very handsome.
No, well, not my type anyway. I don't know. Don't like yours much either.
And definitely not created in its own image. Because
exactly. So
I'm being silly.
But yes. So yeah, we've been plagued by reptoids. We've been plagued by giants, titans.
Which is weird, isn't it? This whole thing about the reptoids, right?
Yeah.
When was the first time you ever heard about this?
Well, personally, I started listening to David Icke in about 98. Well, actually, I knew David Icke long before that. I knew him through a personal connection. My ex-wife, indeed. My flatmate, who I used to live with, the guy who used to stay with her in the old house, he was a friend of David Icke's from the Green Party.
All right.
And he used to be in the British Green Party, and that's where I knew him from. And I saw him in Glastonbury in 1994. So that's where I started hearing about this kind of stuff about them.
Right, and he was already in his new self when you came.
Oh yeah, he was doing the old turquoise thing. And I tell you, he spoke to 5 guys and a dog.
He was in his turquoise phase. Actually, I kind of liked him in his turquoise phase. He was so out there; it was just unreal. But he's become more normal now. I think his kundalini has kind of settled down now.
His eyes were a bit bulgy, weren't they?
That's right. It's like he had I think he had a massive kundalini awakening, right? And he was a little startled by it at the beginning, so he did actually come across as slightly raving lunatic at the time, right? I came across the demonic energy first, right? The first time I came across that energy consciously, I was 8 years old. And because there were demonic entities in my bedroom, every night when I went to sleep. I could see them. And I could feel them breathe. That was not fun. Right. And I used to say to my mum, there's dark shadow beings in the bedroom. And when you close the door, they come and kind of sniff me out. And she was like, no, it's fine. It's just your imagination. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, my imagination is over there, right, looking at me right now. Right? So anyway, so I came across those guys first, and then the first exposure to the whole concept of that, yes, was through David Icke, kind of around the same time actually, maybe end of the 90s. And at the time, it seemed, that's also when I first came across the idea of trauma-based mind control, right? End of the 90s. And yes. I remember reading about it all, and I was like, this sounds totally out there. And at the same time, I can't put it down. Do you know what I mean? There was something about it that felt completely insane, and at the same time, it felt like truth to me.
Compelling.
Right. So I had to put it in my filing cabinet of open stuff that I still needed to think about, but I couldn't quite file away. And then, as often happens, then the universe brings you more and more and more stuff. At least that's how it works in my world, right? And in fact, I remember very early, like in the year 2000 or 2001, it was like really early days of me being in America, and I was part of the an astrological society here in Southern California, and it literally was just about astrology, and there were some really interesting speakers that would come every now and then. Like national level speakers that would just talk to you about astrology. So it was like all about learning, right? Like learning techniques and tools. Very normal, however, as content. And one day, I get the email from these people saying that there was a meeting and that we were going to have this meeting on the border with Mexico, in this center that was like a center of Thelema, right? Like one of those Masonic kind of places.
Oh, Thelema, Thelema.
And so off I go, and I'm like, okay, well, this will be interesting. So it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it's this center, and it has all of this Masonic lodge type stuff on it, which at the time I didn't even know what that was, because I hadn't. It was early days. I hadn't quite done all my research yet, but I knew it was something weird because there was all these symbols everywhere and everything, and chickens that were running around, and it was just weird. Okay. And I go in, and the interesting thing was that they actually rented this place to do this lecture. And they actually had nothing to do with it had nothing to, the people that were lecturing had nothing to do with the actual center. They just had rented it.
Yes, just a venue, yeah.
And the woman that was talking, she said, I know that this is, you're here to listen about astrology, and I am going to put this into the context of astrology, but this, the beginning of this lecture is actually going to be about satanic ritual abuse and trauma-based mind control.
Oh, my favorite subject. Now,
but at the time I was like, oh, great. And I was like, what's this? And basically this person had been through, she was an astrologer, but she had just realized that she had been through this whole experience when she was a child, and she was processing all the memories that she was having from it. And as part of that, she referenced Zvali, who was a Illuminati mind control trainer, who actually hailed out of Southern California, right? And who to this day is still one of the big whistleblowers on the whole mind control thing, the trauma-based mind control thing, right? And she talked about it. She said, if you're interested in learning more about these are the two things that you may want to know about, is is she kind of said where one could find it on the web and so on. And then she said, and also I'm looking through the audience and I can see that there's some people that are kind of swimming in their seat listening to that, and I know who in here is feeling triggered just because I know. And she looked right at me. She literally looked right into my eyeballs. and she said, I know some people here have had their own version of whatever this is. And I was like, okay, I need to go. So anyway, so that was the universe leads you where you need to go. It's just so amazing how many, now we take it for granted because everybody out there is a researcher. There's about 200 billion websites about stuff and people talking about everything out there, right? But there was a time in which none of this was available, and it was like stumbling into something very, very obscure. And I'm sure that there's other people here that have had that experience in the audience, I'm sure, because a lot of the people in our audience are actually they've been at this for quite some time. So, but people that come into this now, it's almost like they can open a book and all the information is there, but it wasn't always that way.
Yeah,
right?
I have to say, in the chat room, there's an interesting conversation going on, and I just wanted to just kind of acknowledge that it's very interesting, and but there was Rick in the chat room has come up with he just said, many of us have been programmed to think we somehow deserve or cause the abuse. And it's one of these things, that there's like these New Age speaks, little phrases that come out, that they cause my hackles to rise. They cause an internal tension that says, no, sorry, I was just about to curse there, that says, no, that's not true. It makes me feel very, very uncomfortable. And this is we deserve the powers that be because we asked for them.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, and this is why I believe that humanity has been victimized, and we have to acknowledge that. What do you think, Kate?
I do. I agree. And also, what I do think is that you can look at issues from many different levels, but that doesn't mean that you only should look at it from one level. So, for example, you can say, my soul chose to come down onto this planet and to experience this crappy story, okay? And something about that can empower you in the sense that you can then go, okay, well, why would I have chosen that? I chose that because I wanted to learn about empowerment, I want to learn about resilience, I want to learn about truth, I want to learn about whatever, right? So it gives you the framework in which to put your story, okay? But what the New Agers do, they take it to another level where they basically say, therefore, because you chose this, screw you.
That's right. You can't complain about it because you asked for it. Yeah, exactly.
Because you chose it, you created it, so hey, you have trauma, who cares? Bye. See ya. Right? You know what I mean? And don't even talk to me about it, because otherwise you're being a victim and in victim consciousness, and aren't you over this yet?
Exactly. And it's another element of what I call spiritual competitiveness. Like I'm more sorted than you. It's like I'm okay, you're so-so.
Yeah. And it is actually, I've written about this because it's been a beef of mine before. It's kind of stopped bothering me because I've come to a place of peace with it. Because I came originally, metaphysically, we all have to start somewhere, right? And David Icke started with the Green Party and then he walked away from that. Initially, I started with a fairly, I I used to read a lot of New Age stuff, and was kind of okay with a lot of it. And but then I wasn't. Then it got to a point where I wasn't okay with some of it, and I had to do my own little internal conflict to decide what I was with and what I wasn't with, right? And I came to the conclusion that that the seeds of what we now call the New Age, I think, were actually legitimate, in the sense that there is a consciousness that is rising. We are evolving as a planet. We are awakening. Even the stuff about the DNA, some of that is BS and some of it is true. The DNA is being awakened. We are moving into various degrees of expanded soul bodies and consciousness bodies and so on and so on. So there is a lot of truth. There's truth in the New Age stuff, right? But I also think that a little bit of corruption just from human nature, because people are who they are, and they, not everything and everybody is high consciousness, so you kind of get the watered down version of things always in every belief system, movement or whatever. But on top of that, a lot of heavy mind control programming at the collective level made it into that. And I think it was almost like the elite knew that there was going to be a large group of souls that were going to awaken at a certain point, and that they were going to incarnate all of these like bright, shiny, bright souls. Let's set a nice little trap so that we can derail them all, right, into the most waste of space, La La Land, judgmental.
La La Land, that's right. We'll talk about that in a minute, because, I live in Findhorn, which is Teletubby Land, Anyway, go on.
Yeah, but it's also uncomparsionate. Abraham Hicks is not compassionate. I'm sorry. There's no compassion there. It's a lot of judgment. It teaches people to focus on, and not just Abraham Hicks, but a certain kind of New Ageness. Teaches people to focus on creating stuff, developing the personality rather than the soul, if we're talking in esoteric terms, right? Developing personality needs, shiny cars, nice big houses, do you know what I mean? In the case of Abraham Hicks, nice motorhomes and workshops on cruises. It's like it takes people into the pursuit of the material and the building of the personality, rather than into the development of the soul and the consciousness. To the point that a couple of years ago on Facebook, I posted something about soul lessons, right? And I had a very well-meaning but totally patronizing New Age person, right, that sent me a private message saying, Katie, I see that you're still in this lessons thing, level of consciousness. One day you will understand that there's nothing to learn. You can create whatever you want. Right? You can create whatever you want, and there's nothing to learn, nowhere to go, just stuff to create, right? Which I understand on some level what it is that she was trying to say.
I would have told her where to go.
Yep. But the thing is, there is lessons. It is the reason for this is a school. We're here. We incarnate to learn. Okay. And if you take that out of the equation, really, there's it's kind of like the foundation drops out of the building kind of thing. And then then you're in the moment and everything becomes about what can I create? Because if that is all that there is, that there's the here and now and so on, then you're going to want to make this experience as best as you possibly can have it. And I'm not saying, this is a tricky territory, because you can say things like that. It sounds as if everything is supposed to be struggle and hard work and all the rest of it, which is not the case either. I think we're supposed to learn how to also live in joy, in balance, and so on. But joy and balance are a natural product of a good growth-orientated consciousness. Okay? Because you learn not to take certain things personally, you learn to have faith that things are always going to sort themselves out somehow. You learn to walk away from drama, you resolve your karmic conflicts with people, you overcome your own stuff, and as a result of that, yeah, of course, your life becomes easier and everything becomes smoother and so on, right?
Well, you know, the way I see it is when they talk about work, the work is not to be an idiot like you used to be. That's the work. It's simple. It's really, really simple. You make a choice that is not selfish anymore. And
that's right.
That's what karma's all about. There's nothing silly. There's nothing, metaphysical. It's just don't be an idiot.
Don't be an idiot. Don't be nasty to other people. Stay out of your ego. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for the souls that are also a little bit, that have had a lot of lives under their belts, it's also, we gave you a job to do it properly. Do you know what I mean? It's like, now you're grown up enough that we've given you a job to do that is not just about yourself. Make sure that you do it properly. Do you know what I mean? So that it's, don't fight with other people while you're doing it. Don't screw up the job and flush it down the toilet because, you've all of a sudden you've decided that you're not interested. Do you know what I mean? Or don't make it all about yourself. That it's like, hey, look at me, I'm the planet rescuer. Hey, come and watch my TV show.
Exactly. And it's so, you can see people popping up now, and it's been all through the ages, really. It was what we call the Messiah complex.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
A lot of us have it secretly.
Yes.
Because the opposition feeds us things in our ears, and one of these is these little ideas, and one of the ideas is that you're on your own. So combine that with a sense of mission and purpose, then you think you're the only person with the mission. Actually, what you realize is that actually there are tens of thousands of people having the same idea as you, because thoughts are things that have people, not the other way round, and we are all acting according to the thought that is moving through the planet, and nothing to do with how we are able to cognize and cogitate and create our mental patterns. These thoughts already exist, and they're drawing us along in the flow.
And not only that, but the plan. You know how you read that thing about the plan the other time we did. And by the way, that can be a little controversial in itself because that's Alice Bailey's work, and some people think that plan is another plan. But aside from that, there is a plan.
It's the plan. What they call it's the plan of love and light. What could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong?
You can, but as I say, it's like I think that there's a dark plan and a light plan, and the plan is, again, you have to put it into context. Planetary shift. Planetary shift is real. New Age may not be real. Planetary shift, however, is real. A planetary shift, however, does not mean the planet shifts and sprouts wings and we start flying onto the fifth dimension and everybody walks on water and it looks like Saint Germain. That's not the plan. Right? The plan that, like, what is happening is energy, consciousness rising. It's a physical phenomena. We can't measure consciousness physically because we just, or maybe we can, I don't know, but it's a physical thing. As the consciousness increases, people have an opportunity to evolve. It's happening individually, it's happening collectively. As we have an opportunity to evolve, right? Evolve doesn't mean sprout wings. Evolve means your consciousness gets higher. You understand more, you get wiser, right? And you have a choice. you can become a more evolved dark being or a more evolved light being. If you're a more evolved dark being, you play with the Lucifer team. If you're a more evolved light being, you play on the source team. Okay? Now, does the Lucifer team, I'm calling it the Lucifer team just for short, right? Now, does that team serve a purpose? Does it serve a purpose?
The Lucifer team,
yes.
The opposition gives us something to produce traction, because they're so magnetically locked, and we're talking electricity versus magnetic here. They're so magnetically locked that it gives us something firm to push against in order to send us further into the light. By seeing what an idiot someone can be, you can learn from their mistakes. It's quite easy.
You can. And absolutely, that is true, okay? So there is, and this is where I'm going back to your original question, so there is a level on which we have chosen, right, to go through this experience of collective catalyst, okay? The collective catalyst, like the Luciferian energy is the collective catalyst. The Luciferian energy, in some ways, will darken and darken and darken and darken, right? Become darker and darker. The more unopposed, not unopposed because we are opposing it, but basically, if we allow it, it's like all abuse, right? Abuse continues until you stay and take it, right? That does not mean that the person doing the abusing gets off for free. Do you know what I mean? That it's all okay for them doing that. But how does the abuse stop? Because the abuser all of a sudden goes, hey, I've decided that it's not so cool for me to be an abuser, I'm going to stop doing that now. Do you want a flower? It doesn't go that way. Do you know what I mean? Abuser stays abuser until somebody says, hey, I'm sorry, but you're not going to do this anymore, I'm walking, right? Or they burn the house with the abuser in it, or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Extreme reaction, but yes.
The burning bed with Farrah Fawcett.
That's right.
So at one point, it's like, this abuser is just too much for me. Just light the match. That's the only way to deal with it, right? A bit extreme, but it worked, right? Like, she walked away. So
that's right.
Better not to get to that point, because then there's consequences to that. Do you know what I mean? But basically what I'm saying is the catalyst will continue to be catalyst until whatever the catalyst is trying to catalyze you towards happens. And so in the terms of the dark energy continues to be dark and to increase its darkness until whatever lesson we're trying to learn from that kicks in. And it's a lesson of empowerment. It's a lesson that says, enough, you're not doing this anymore, this is my line, don't be dark. If you continue to be dark, something will happen. There's going to be a consequence. The consequence is we're not going to play with you anymore. We're not going to do your wars. We're not going to buy your stupid products. We're not going to take your stupid medicines. We're not going to do any of that stuff. And so the initiation at the collective level is that the collective of humanity says, I'm not playing this game anymore. Okay? And it can be as it looks to me, we've done a lot of the vocalizing, right? As a group, as a humanity group, we've done a lot of the vocalizing. The vocalizing meaning, the Emperor has no clothes. I can see that the Emperor has no clothes. In fact, I can see that the Emperor is not even very nice underneath the clothes that he doesn't have. The big exposure has been going on. It has been going on so much that now there's hardly anything to expose, right? It's very rare now that I read something that has something in it that I don't already know, I haven't already read, and I haven't already researched. as a researcher, I'm kind of bored because there is no juice in that anymore. And there's no juice in that because we've done that piece already. Okay? There may be some people that haven't done all of it, so they need to catch up a little bit. But in terms of the uncovering, I think we've uncovered pretty much everything that there is to uncover.
That's good. So, Katie, we're up to the first hour. We've been motoring through, so let's take a break, go and have some, take some breath, and we'll be back after that with some more of the big picture and what's it all about.
Yep.
And I often feel like Mulder and Scully. You and I. So I've got Catatonia's Mulder and Scully lined up. Sorry, you were just about to pop one in.
I was going to say, put a pin in the fact that we need to talk about what do we do next now that we've uncovered everything.
Good. Catatonia there. Mulder and Scully. Just like Katie and JayPee. Mulder and Scully. Doodly 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 boing boing boing. Meanwhile, there was something we pinned. We pinned a note.
We go from here now that we've uncovered everything.
That's right. Now we know that the everything that we've grown up around is like the Truman Show. The whole legal system, education system, all this stuff was built up by the people who are imprisoning us. It's not like we've developed this and they've infiltrated our work. They have created it. They have created the set in which we enact our play. And so what we're needing to do really is to build our own set and play out our own life, our own play, our own dream. Now we know where we're at. Where do we go? Katie.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking here in real time that one of the things that is real about this world is the Earth itself. A lot of what is not real is the structures, the containers within which we operate as humanity. So the money structure, the work structure, the political structure, the medical structure, all of those things, all of these organizational things that we have. I mean, obviously you have to be organized to get something done, right? But the whole pyramid, like if you look at the structures in society, everything is built like a pyramid, where the power gets concentrated more and more at the top, and the people at the bottom know less and less of what is going on, and that's the reptilian way, right? It's like the cogs in the machine, and the machine has a mind, and the mind is hidden. And the mind makes everybody do what it wants. And most of the people at the bottom don't even know why they're doing what they're doing. Right? And everybody is programmed and controlled so that they follow in an agenda, and this agenda is only known to very few people at the top. It's very little information given to the people that are actually doing most of the work. So my sense is all of these structures, they have to go, every single one of them. They're not, they're polluted. Even if the structures were themselves were to work in some way, the agenda behind every single one of these structures is not serving humanity.
Exactly. It's a bit like a casino. In fact, it's exactly like a casino. We all know if you were to run a casino, you would have an idea of how casinos run. If you don't know how casinos are run, you would walk in thinking things are fair. It's a casino. Life is a casino. The world. There's a good distinction here. The world. There's the planet. There's the environment. All three are separate. They're all different things. They're all like layers there's the physical planet, but there's the stuff that moves around on it, the water and the air. That's the environment. And then there's our imagined, constructed reality, which we call the world. And it's very interesting because, I've been involved with the Millennium Bug, and people talk about the end of the world. Now, the world, to me, is this construct that is created for us. It's the Truman Show, and that defines our boundaries, about which they don't, it's like you're taught very early on as a child, don't jump over that fence. Just like a puppy. If you teach a puppy, don't jump over that fence. As the puppy grows up and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger, and the fence gets smaller and smaller to it, it still won't go over the fence because it was trained. It was trauma-based mind control. That fence is nowhere to be gone over. You must never go over there, even though it's perfectly capable of doing so. It's like they can tie up an elephant with a bit of string because of that.
Yeah, it's true. Now, if we go back to what this planet actually... one of my websites is called Reclaiming the Light, and I use the word reclaiming a lot because actually what we need to do is to reclaim all of it. We need to reclaim the planet, because the planet is ours. It's not theirs. It's ours. We were here first. It's our planet. We need to reclaim it, and then we need to live in harmony with the planet. We were already doing this a long time ago, before all of this energy that has come in, this catalyst force, right, is highly parasitic. It's parasitic towards us, in the sense that we end up working for them and they get all the money, right? They use our workforce to generate all of the money that they have invented, and they siphon everything off of the base to go to the top of the pyramid, right? It's siphoned off. It's parasitic. And also, they are parasitic towards the planet. They use the resources of the planet. They strip the planet of everything that it has. They pollute it. They do whatever. They don't care. And I get a sense that this particular kind of, let's call it an energy, that they do this planet after, like, once they're done with this planet, once there's nothing to take, right? Do you think they're going to stay here? Do you think they're going to, so in love with this planet that they want to be here? No, we're just a resource, right? And then once they're done with this zone, they'll move on to another one, and then to another one. That's what parasites do, okay? You give nothing and you take everything until what you're parasiting on has exhausted itself, and then you move on to the next host. And that's the energy that these beings have, and they have this energy they have this way of operating at the energetic level, because they plug into people's energy fields and they suck out they hitch a ride on other people's energy. They thrive on the emotions of discordant power, discordant sexuality, anything discordant, they'll plug into it and they'll suck it, right? Which is why it's important to not be discordant, because if you are discordant, you become food for the dark beings, okay? Aside from any morality, and aside from the fact that it's better to be of service to others-orientated being, on a very practical level, if you are a service to self being, or you're just a being that creates a lot of chaos and around you and runs a lot of anger and a lot of fear and a lot of hate, if you run those kind of energies, you become food for the parasites, okay? And on the energetic level, one of the reasons which these beings are parasitic is because they are, as a group, because they operate as a group, they do have Borg-like consciousness. Star Trek, the dude that wrote Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, that guy knew more stuff. He knew stuff. Not everything that is in Star Trek is made up.
Well, that's an interesting. Can I come in on that, Katie? Because
Please do.
I was listening to who was it? Rebecca's show on Friday night on Wolf Spirit Radio and Revolution Radio, which reminds me I need to do the rap. But let's just finish that thought. Their guests were talking about this, and it turns out that basically people like Robert Heinlein, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, all of these, Gene Roddenberry, all these sci-fi writers actually were insiders. They were part of the military-industrial complex, and the release of sci-fi was in fact part of the necessary disclosure that the Illuminati need in order to get away with what they're doing by putting it out there, hiding it in plain sight, sort of thing. Whoops. Yeah,
and actually, I'm going to say more about sci-fi because I think that it's an important topic.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and you and I are sci-fi lovers, and ever since I was a kid.
I was a sci-fi buff as young as I can remember. Because the first book that I ever read, literally, that I ever with my eyes was able to read as a kid, and I was like, I don't know, 7 or something, like real proper book that wasn't like a kiddie thing, was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne, who was also an insider, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he 100 years ago, 100 years ago, he had stuff that we use today.
Yes, like the Nautilus submarine, and and also if you because I read all of his stuff before I was like 8 years old. I liked it and I read everything because in my house there was no I just found a box that was full of books and I just read a whole lot of them, and they were all boys' books because I was in a extended family in which I was the first girl. So there was no girl stuff around for me to plug into, right? And so I just read a whole bunch of boy books. And
well, you mean you didn't dress up Action Man in little frocks and things?
I didn't have any of that stuff. I had when I was a kid. We were quite poor, and I had. I mean, not like no food kind of poor, but there was no frills, right? Like no extras. And so I actually inherited my books and my toys from cousins and, do you know what I mean? From my
hand-me-downs.
Hand-me-downs. And all my hand-me-downs were boy stuff. It was boy books and chemistry sets and microscopes and and all of that kind of stuff, right? It was no frilly things. And that is part of the reason, I think, for which I ended up going to science school when I was really young, because I developed a science brain really young because that was what I was exposed to. Okay. I was building my own crystals out of copper filings and stuff when I was like 8, do you know what I mean? And it was kind of fun. I kind of liked it. So anyway, where was I going? Jules Verne, the sci-fi. Okay, sci-fi, part of it is disclosure, but more and more, especially now, it's not disclosure, it's predictive programming. What they're doing is that they are giving you future scenarios and programming you on how to react to them. Okay? And I'm not sure that this was the case always, but that is definitely the case now. It's almost as if they're presenting you with things that are going to happen that they know, they're part of the plan, right? They know they're going to happen, and they're giving them to you first as sci-fi food, right? And then after that, when they happen, you don't know, but for the past 20 years you've been programmed about how to react to that and how to think about that future issue that hasn't actually come up yet. Okay? And if you look at programs like Battlestar Galactica, the new version, not the old one, but the new one, right? which, by the way, I thought was well done and I enjoyed, and was a complete rip-off of Babylon 5 as far as the some of the content in it. And Babylon 5 is a better series, I think.
Babylon 5 is the best sci-fi series I ever saw.
Me too.
Yeah. I mean, there's some good... All right, Stargate is great, and Farscape was brilliant, but Babylon 5 really drew you in. I just wanted to watch the whole thing and see what happens with all these characters and all their dramas and all the way it all interacted.
You know, one of the things that is different about Babylon 5 was written by one person only, by himself. That is, I call him JMS, I can't remember what his name is, Joe Michael
Straczynski.
Yes, Straczynski or whatever. It's some unpronounceable last name. And, but he wrote the whole thing single-handedly, and he channeled it. That was like totally channeled. The guy actually talks about his process of how he did that and how he wrote that. And he said that the character was just talking to him in his head, and that he had, and he channeled it. And I think that that is one of the few shows that actually, I think, is light-driven. I think a lot of the sci-fi that we have is dark-driven. It's not, even if it looks like it's dark, it's coming from the insiders and it has an agenda. I think that JMS is one of the few people that was not actually doing that, right? Like, he wasn't an insider. I think he had it down because he was obviously consciousness-wise open enough to receive that information. And if you go and have a look at the history of the making of Babylon 5, none of those actors got paid very much. It was a struggle every year to get that thing renewed. They were constantly trying to kick him off the air. And on year 4 of Babylon 5, they did kick him off the air, and he had to go shopping around with his crew, basically begging all sorts of stations to let him finish the story because he had one more year to go. And eventually he did find some obscure TV channel that actually allowed him to do the last, to finish it. And so they shot the last year, because it was always, he had the whole story all mapped out, and it was always supposed to be a 5-year story. And in the Babylon 5 story, people are probably going to get bored about the Babylon 5 story, but...
No, I recommend people go find a torrent stream. I'll give them the torrent for it, the whole series, yep. And go away and watch it and learn some spiritual truth.
That's right.
So I've got some bits to add. You go ahead, Kate.
I just finished very quickly.
Take your time.
Well, the story of Babylon 5 is our story. It's the story that we're in, because there's the dark forces that are the shadows, and there's the light forces that are the Vorlons that are even kind of shadowy in themselves, and then us as human beings and this other race called the Nimbari, and then the very corruptible Centauri Prime people, right? And pretty much in that story, there is everything in there that we are going through, because they expand on the dark being catalyst, okay? Because there's the whole order versus chaos kind of thing. They bring that in as an issue, that the dark forces are using this survival of the fittest model, right? While instead the light forces are using this more evolutionary model, right? And eventually the moral of the story becomes, which I think is just genius in from that guy's perspective, the moral of the story becomes emancipate yourself from both light and dark, because the solution is not in the polarity, the solution is in the sovereignty of the human.
Absolutely. Get out of my galaxy.
Get out of my galaxy.
Listen, folks, you really have to watch Babylon. If you haven't seen Babylon 5, it's an excursion. We're going into fall, into winter now. Download the whole series and watch a couple of episodes every day. It'll have, Babylon 5 is one of the, if you like sci-fi movies in general, Babylon 5 is an entire sci-fi movie in an episode. It's got all the components. It's got the battle scene, it's got the fight scenes, but it's also got the bar scene, and it's got humour, and it's got drama and characters and development and addictions and obsessions, and it's just absolutely beautifully put together. But yes, exactly, that's the thing. It's the get out of my galaxy sort of finale. By the time he gets to and he first of all, there's this mysterious kind of angelic, supposedly guy, and he turns out to be not so angelic. And the dark forces, although they're kind of scary, spidery, fourth dimensional sort of creatures who zoom in and out and control people. We actually never got too much of it, but they all are into implants. And
it's true.
Yeah,
and corrupted telepaths. They corrupt the telepath force, which I think is totally how things go. There's a lot of the mind control aspect in there with the Psycorp. It's like it's done really, really well. I actually got somebody that is now an ex of mine, but is a good friend. When we were together, I was like, you have to watch Babylon 5, and he was like, oh no, I don't like it. I don't really like watching long things. And then I was like, well, I'm watching it anyway. If you want to watch it, it's fine. If you don't, it's fine. And he got hooked, right? And then it was like, okay, every night we have to watch 2 episodes of this, otherwise I can't sleep.
Easy, nice one.
And he got completely hooked on it. and now, years from the fact, every now and then he sends me pieces of Sleeping in Light, that is the last episode, that is like, very moving. It's very moving, right?
Yeah, poignant.
So every now and then, every year or so, he will send me a piece of Sleeping in Light saying, oh my god, this series was just so good. How come I'm not watching it anymore? So anyway, so there you go. But it's a good metaphor for what is going on. But aside from Babylon 5, everything else, pretty much, you have to kind of pay attention to. If you look, for example, at the new stuff that has come out, there was the V series, right?
Oh yes, V. I remember V from the 1984 series. I watched that with my flatmates when it was out there, and funnily enough, one of those rather kind of glamorous, gorgeous, big-haired women looked just like my wife, because they had these this reptilian skin underneath this beautiful-looking skin. Well, that kind of thing. But Defiance, yes. Tracy has just mentioned Defiance.
I haven't seen that one.
You haven't seen it? Very good. It's a kind of post-invasion scenario, in that they've come, they've destroyed, they've gone. There may be a few stragglers left, but it's kind of like a Mad Max kind of world. But included among the humans are various other aliens. And there's this group who are like tall blonde, very thin, very pale. They're very reptilian. They live in this very bright white zone. Their houses are very clean and white. They're very sexually open, and they bathe together all the time. They're all walking around the house naked and everything. And it's some great races, and the way they move is beautiful. It's really like very serpentine. It's really,
I'll have to have this.
Yeah, excellent. Yes. Oh yes. So anyway, back to V. Yeah. So they're going. They all love V in the TV in the chat room here, and the from Beatrix he's saying the Bliss episode.
That was very good.
Yes.
That is the Bliss episode is the New Age.
Exactly.
The Bliss episode is like, don't think about anything, just feel good. We'll give you the download of feel good energy. As long as you're at peace and happy in the yoga position, everything is good, and don't worry about a thing, and don't worry about the fact that horrible things are happening all over the place, because all you have to think is about yourself and how good you're feeling inside of yourself, and that's a lot of what the New Agers will tell you. If you go to a full-blown New Ager, right, and you say to a full-blown New Ager, we've got a problem here, and I was going to give a very bad example, and Obama is a clone.
Yeah, we've been talking about that, haven't we?
Maybe not the best example, because a lot of people wouldn't take that, but, if you point out some kind of issue, they will tell you, don't think about issues, because you're just going to magnify them. And in fact, I had this discussion very recently with somebody, who I will not identify, but that I've talked to you about in private, and I was basically saying, we need to tackle some of the stuff that is happening in the world as part of this project that we were getting into, and the response was, I don't think that's a very good idea, because what you focus on grows, and so if you actually bring attention to this, it will actually amplify it. And it's like, excuse me? That is bliss thinking.
Totally.
It is.
It's
a program that is very convenient to the Truman Show builders, right? Because it makes you say everything is fine, don't look at anything, don't look, and if there's something wrong, don't look. And in fact, not only don't look, but if you pay any attention to this at all, this bad thing that we're doing, you're going to amplify it. So you better go back to thinking about your bliss.
That's right. Focus on the bliss. So,
that's right.
And this is what we call La La Land.
We do.
It's a state of mind, and in terms of the rays, because I always like to mention the rays during the show, and in terms of the rays, it's the one of the glamours of the sixth ray. It's always the sixth ray, isn't it? One of the glamours of the sixth ray, because it rules the solar plexus. And this is what the powers that be are trying to get us into. They're trying to bring us always into the solar plexus, and that's where idealism lives. That's where the bliss lives. This is where loyalty and fealty and all of those things live, and fear, of course. And each of which, all of those aforementioned are a subset of the fear mean. The idea is to bring us down into our solar plexus, into the astral world, where you can create the world. That's the Truman world, is the astral world. It's like if you were to walk along the road and you were to see a white stripe painted on the road, the world teaches you that white stripe must not be crossed, and so you don't cross it.
Right.
But in reality, you can just walk across it because it's just a stripe on the floor.
Yes.
It's the meaning that we've been given that creates the world, and that creates the boundaries that we observe. And some of this is very convenient. For instance, you have the white or yellow stripe beside the train, so that people know where the platform edge is. Where it's dangerous to stand because you might get hit by a 60-mile-an-hour train going past.
That's right.
So, therefore, guidelines as well as boundaries. So, when people talk about, is this the end of the world, we have to think, maybe the world is not such a bad thing to have to end, because then we can create our world.
That's right, and so let's go back to that, because we kind of derailed from that a tiny bit, right? From the world and the solution. So I think we all agree that this world, as the container, the Truman container, it has to go. Okay. Now we have been in the Truman container for so long, right, that we really don't know much else. In the sense that if you have an animal that's always been in a cage, and suddenly you take the cage away and you put it out of the cage, the animal is like, what? Excuse me? What do I do now?
In fact, it gets very nervous and frightened because it's now out of its prescribed boundaries, and it doesn't know what to do when it has its own choice.
Yeah, it doesn't know what to do. And in fact, a lot of animals, when you do that, if the cage is still there, they'll run back into it. Because they're uncomfortable. They don't understand the territory, and so on. So we have some of that, I think, as human beings. We're like, well, how are we supposed to do it? How are we supposed to do it without money, without structures, without corporations, without businesses, without whatever, right? And I think that, there are probably some elements of the structure that can be salvaged just in terms of the organizational setup, right? But it has to come from it's almost like the founding principles behind these structures. They have to go because the controllers at the top of the pyramid do not have our best interest at heart, so they've built this whole castle of cards in a way that does not serve us, right? And I've talked before about the fact that I had a vision in 1999, and it was a very profound vision. It was so profound that it actually, in some ways, was life-changing for me, even if it was a kind of simple. And I think that the reason for which it was that life-changing was because of how it felt energetically. I knew that I was looking at something very real, and that I knew it was like, it was a download, a full download of like, pay attention to this is important, and so on. And at the time, it was literally a day in which I wasn't feeling very well, and I called in sick for work because I was just not with it, and I went back to bed. But I didn't fully go back to sleep, and there was this ray of light that came from my bedroom because I hadn't closed my shades properly, and it kept hitting right in between my eyes, so I couldn't actually fall asleep. But I was too tired to get up and shut the blinds. So, and in this kind of like halfway state, I had this profound 20 minutes in which I found myself in a room full of people on some other plane, and in this almost like an outer body thing. And in this room, there were various people that were lecturing. This was in 1999, and they were lecturing to a wide audience, and they were talking about the world and about what was going to happen, and the transition that we were in. And it was like, we've already been doing this for 60 years, we've got at least another 20 years to go, and this was 1999, so that would take us to 2019. And they were giving everybody instructions about what it is that they had to do, and they told me that my instruction was that I was going to be in charge of vibrational healing. That at the time made absolutely no sense to me because I wasn't into healing. And then they showed me a movie of the Earth to be, and the Earth to be, it was really quiet. There was a very little electromagnetic hum, which we don't realize that we're in it all the time, but if it's taken away, you notice it. Like, we're in this constant hum, and it wasn't there. There was no hum. And the planet looked very green. There was not as many people on it, and what I was being shown was a village. And this village was, in some ways, very advanced, but in some ways not, because it had its own windmill, and the electricity was produced by whatever this thing was. It looked like a windmill, but maybe it wasn't. But that thing fed the electricity to the whole village. It was not connected to a grid. It was based in the actual village itself. And within that village, there was a community that was totally self-sustaining. And the feeling that I got from it was that the people inside of this community were extremely smart and extremely proactive, and that they had figured out a way to do all sorts of things in a different way that was very respectful to the earth, right? So it had an ecological feel to it. But also, it was off the grid. It was not plugged into any, big system. The same with the way that we're here. For example, our houses are plugged here. They're plugged into SDG&E, that is the San Diego Gas and Electric Company, right? If you're not plugged into them, you don't get your gas and electric. And there was none of that. It was autonomous. It was like cells. And so it was as if the Earth, the humanity had reorganized itself into very autonomous cells. And these cells were connected. They felt connected, but they were not connected in the same way that they're connected now. And it felt that whatever world was there before had gone. It was gone. It was not there anymore. It felt that humanity had taken back the world. But the world had now become this other thing. And it was, but a lot of people had left, so obviously there had been a lot of, people had died or left or whatever. It was not a very populated planet, but it was, starting over at a very high level of consciousness with a slightly different technology that was much more in balance and that was more manageable on a cellular level. And that did not require for people to be plugged into big grids that are controlled by the Anunnaki, right? And so on. So I don't know. That was a vision at the time.
That's very interesting.
And my sense in general is that we have to go back to a world that is ruled by consciousness, by our structures have to be ruled by consciousness rather than by profit or money or whatever. We have to get back to, for example, let's talk about school. If you think about school in itself is not a bad thing. School in itself is about passing on learning to younger people, older people passing on learning to younger people, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that. There's nothing wrong with a structure that allows for people to do that. What is wrong is the information that is being passed down in the first place, that is all rubbish, and the indoctrination that happens as a result of doing that. Okay? But the actual act of passing on the information and of having some structure that allows you to do it efficiently in groups, that would be something you call school, that is not necessarily a bad thing, but we should be teaching something completely different. We should be teaching people life skills. We should be teaching people how to think critically. We should be teaching people how to be self-sufficient, how to grow stuff, how to love better, how to have more harmonious relationships, how to understand male-female psychology, how to raise a child, how to grow your own food, how to nurture the body, how to nurture the spirit, how to nurture the mind. All of these kinds of things. And yeah, in the middle of that, it would be nice to be able to read and write and do some math and all the rest of it. But there's fundamentals of what it means to grow up as a full-blown, proficient, efficient human being. We don't get any of that stuff in school. You know, we don't get any of that. All that it is indoctrination, fake history, fake science, fake belief systems so that you can fit nicely into the production machine. And you can apply that to pretty much every structure that is out there. It's not wrong to have some structures that take care of people's health, but if those structures are actually designed to take people away from the direct contact with a true healer or doctor and actually make them into a number that just downloads a prescription for some toxic medicine that has been concocted by the Bush family and the Project Paperclip.
Some oil company.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay.
Totally.
And by the way, we have a lot of aluminium left over. Have some of that. You know. So, yeah. So we have to start over. We have to start over we have to also start to realize who we are as human beings. Human beings are special beings. We have a lot of good stuff going for us, but we're special beings that have been bred to be in conflict. We have been bred to be nasty to each other. It's like dogs. If you put dogs into a natural environment and you treat them well and all the rest of it, dogs are lovely. They're affectionate. They come and kiss you on the cheeks. You know, they smell nice and they're good companions and loyal and all the rest of it. But if you train a dog as an attack dog, that thing will like bite you and eat you alive. And we have been trained to do that to each other. We have been trained to climb to the top and to climb over everybody else and to just aggrandize ourselves and a big puffy egos and big puffy bank accounts and all the rest of it and just, you know, climb on top of each other to get to wherever it is that we need to get to. You know, and in America they call that the American dream. You know, an American dream my ass. You know, it's nice in terms of like, yeah, you can build your own world, but how are you doing that? You're doing that by stepping on top of other people's heads and by embracing an ideology of ruthless individualism. That's not a dream. It's a nightmare.
But it is a nightmare. You're right, and it's, you know, the American dream, 1444 BST.
The recording.
Here's the thing. You know, we're all stressed. Everybody's stressed right now, and we all need a bob or two because. We've been doing this for years, for free. Everybody does this for free. You know, we do these radio shows, giving out all the information that we've spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours researching and finding out. And, and you know, it used to be that we were doing it in books, and now we're doing it online and watching other people's output. And it's synthesizing. It's coming together. We're starting to get an idea of the big picture en masse. There's going to be a critical point when it goes snap, everything falls into place for everybody, and we all go, right, okay, I know what to do next. And then everybody does know what to do next, and that's the first step in getting towards that world that you were talking about. Is interesting. Because, you know, one of the things, as you were talking, you know, you're saying, you know, they've got a windmill there, and it's self-sufficient. If you were to see Findhorn, that's what that looks like, but it isn't really. It just looks like it, right? Because they have had people such as you who have had the visions of the future, and so they've taken the vision of the future and they've created like a 3D version of it,
right?
And they're in debt, loans to the bank. So they're stuck in exactly the same slave mentality as everybody else.
Yes, sir.
So it looks like it, but it isn't it. It isn't that future, because we still need to build it. However, if you want to know what a rough approximation looks like, that's what Findhorn is. And I live 10 miles away. I'd be happy if anybody wants to stay in a B&B. I'll do the tour guide thing. I'll tell everybody about everything.
I think it's ultimately why everything has to be based in consciousness.
Yes.
Because unless we can change the ruling consciousness, this is what we're going to continue to create.
That's right, and the ruling consciousness is predatory. It's pedophilic. It's parasitical.
Yes.
All three of those, and it's not very nice, and they are not our friends. And we basically just need to put them in a box somewhere, put them on an island somewhere. I don't want to kill them. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to torture them. I just want them out of my way. And that's really what anger's about, is getting things out of my way.
Out of my galaxy.
Yes. So, before Katie gets too psycho, we get the echo when I have my mic open and Katie has hers at the same time. It bounces back and forth. But I would like to remind everybody that Wall Spirit Radio is a listener-donated supported site. We have no commercials. You listen to, I mean, if you were to listen to any other radio station like the Rents Radio or American Freedom Radio, they have commercials on every 8 minutes that, take up a good 15 minutes of every hour. You're getting maybe 5 minutes out of every hour with a little tune for people to relax. So you're getting 55 minutes of content for free. We ask you for a small donation so that you can download the archives, that you can listen to our past shows, which we've also spent all that time presenting the content. It's up to us to ascertain and assert our value. And so we ask for a small donation. It's $5 a month. It's not very much. The price of a coffee. The number of people who listen to this show, this station on a regular basis, it's enough if everybody paid $5 a month to pay for all the servers and all of that stuff. So please, click the support button, the donate button on Wolf Spirit Radio. Now, that's the medium. How about the people of the message? For instance, Katie. You've no idea what Katie can do. She's too humble to say all the things that she can do. You should have a look at her websites. One of them is reclaimingthelight.com. Another one is cosmicessence.com. And various others. But basically, they're a medium that you can read what Katie's had to say about lots of amazingly interesting subjects. And we haven't hardly covered any of the other subjects today that Katie's involved in. But Katie does personal readings and personal work. So if you have problems like possessions or multiple personalities or some other weirdness, no matter how weird, no job too weird, I'd say. How about that, Katie Gallanti?
No fence too high.
That's right. That's right. She will help you break out of the paradigm that you're in. And I'd also like to say, if you come to everbeyond.info, which is my website, you can see some of the cool products that I have. I've got various pendants and things. And I also do personal readings of rays if you have dilemmas in terms of what choice to make. That's one of a good use of the ray understandings. Katie, you also make jewellery. Tell people about your jewellery and how you got into it.
In fact, I just set up a Etsy store, etsy.com, Etsy, right, where there's a lot of craft type work. And my store on Etsy is called, I can't remember it now, it's called Cosmic Goddess Designs, right? And I don't know why I called it that. It's not my favorite name, but that's what came yesterday. Right? So if you go to Etsy, etsy.com, and look for Cosmic Goddess Designs, that's my store, and there's jewellery that I make, and all the jewellery that I make is made with interesting stones that have metaphysical properties. It actually takes me quite a long time to make these pieces. They're unique. I never make the same piece twice. They just come to me and I make them, and most of the people that have gotten some of those, they really like them, and they're like, they're made with good stuff, so that they last, they don't tarnish or any of that stuff, okay? And at the moment, support from that point of view is really welcome, because I try not to, do the money woe thing too much, because I try not to. But at the moment, I can do with some financial support. I've been under a lot of financial stress for quite a long time, definitely for the past 2 or 3 months, and I'm also not very well physically, right? And I can't even go and get the stuff that I need to get better physically because I can't afford it. And if you can support me by allowing me to support you, that helps me, okay? And I'm usually quite flexible with people. I work around your needs as well as my needs, okay?
Wow. So, yeah, did you really think, crystal jewelry is, it's multifunctional. It's more than just a pretty thing. They help you vibrate to an appropriate vibration. And, you know, probably most of the people understand what that means, but, you know, for those who are new to this kind of lingo, when you're acting out of fear or greed or desperation or, you know, survival kind of things, you're what we call vibrating at a low frequency. And the crystal has a much higher sense of purity and of order. That's the idea of crystalline substances. They're highly ordered. And the more we're ordered, the more crystalline we become, the more high vibrational we become. And that's what we talk about, raising your vibration, is becoming more ordered. It's a bit like if you had like a motorboat, right? And you're in the motorboat and you're looking out the back and the engine is kind of idling over and the waves are floating around, and so it's kind of chugging away, and there's a kind of chaos at the back. But as soon as you gun the engine into action, the only vibration that is prevalent there is the vibration of the motor. So then you see a series of structured ripples out of the back of the thing. And that's really what we're talking about. That's what the crystal can do for you. It can send out a series of very structured ripples in the space-time that your body exists in, and that enables your body to tune into that and tune into its higher frequencies. And those higher frequencies is where our soul and our mental body reside instead of our emotional body. So we come out of the morass of astral desires and start to work more with the higher mind, which is actually in the heart. So we have, and generally, a crystal necklace and will place a crystal somewhere around the area of the heart. And so it helps the heart to tune in to the higher vibrational energies that we are emitting as well. So in a way, it's a kind of purifier and a transformer.
It is.
Is that about? Do you want to add to that?
I am going to add something about that, because I think that people think this kind of stuff is actually, you know, woo-woo selling points, right? But I actually really use crystals in my own life. My house is full of them. I have, right now, I'm looking in front of me, I'm on my desk, and I have two gigantic pieces of quartz, a piece of black tourmaline, and I'm sitting next to peridot, ocean jasper, black tourmaline, amethyst, rose quartz, some orange stone, I can't remember what it is, a smoky quartz, and a humongous piece of kyanite, right? And that's just what I'm seeing right in front of me right now. The reason for which I'm surrounded by these stones is, first of all, the black tourmaline is for protection. It helps to hold the field so that the field doesn't get astral polluted, right? There's a lot of stones that the stones have consciousness. If you actually are psychic enough, you can tune in to the stones, and they have their own consciousness. Some stones, there's a place where I go locally that it's like a really high-level crystal store, and high level because it has a lot of really interesting stones in it. And this one has a stone that is huge. It's a big, humongous piece of smoky quartz that looks like a standalone crystal. It's literally almost like a pod, right? And every time I pick up that thing, it talks to me and it says, "Hey, Katie, so when are you going to buy me?" Seriously, it wants to come home with me. And it shows me all of these visions, planetary visions, and it's almost like saying to me, I've been around for such a long time, I'm a record keeper, I have all of this information, do you know what I mean? And so on and so on. Which sounds really weird, but once you actually put it into the context of, that this is a organic structure, it's highly ordered and all the rest of it, it's organic, it's alive just like the planet is, and it has, and a lot of these organic structures have high consciousness beings that are plugged into them, and that allow you to function. So no two crystals are actually alike, even if they're the same kind of stone. And so when I make necklaces, very often what I'm doing is that I'm pulling together certain vibrations that work with certain chakras, and the idea is to help people to go into the higher chakras most of the time, or to clean out the lower ones, because most people don't live, they have messed up with the lower chakras and closed off higher ones. So they are actually healing tools. And, and putting them in a nice necklace is just a nice creative thing to do. But if people don't want to do it that way, they can still use the crystals just for fun. And if you go back and you go to the whole Atlantean consciousness, Atlantis and so on, and you do your past life regressions, you will see that the Atlantis civilization was completely based on crystalline technology, right? We still have crystalline technology. What's inside of our computers is crystalline technology. But the Atlantean people, that's what they did, everything through mind and crystal technology. They used to literally meditate and send energy into some major crystal, and then that crystal sent energy to all sorts of other smaller crystals that were around. Sounds like sci-fi, but that's what it seems that it was like.
Katie, we've come to the end of hour 2. How much juice have you got left in you? Do you want to take some? Do you want to come into my show? I've got an open space just now, so I'd be very happy if you'd like to continue, because there's some.
Only for a short period of time, because I have 2 other commitments after this.
Okay, honey. Brilliant.
So like half an hour, maybe.
Okay, let's do that. Let's just play this one out, and we'll be back after the break with a bit more.